So I've always prided myself on being very vulnerable on all of my platforms, but this is like another whole level here. Welcome back to another episode of Witchy Wellness with Em, and welcome back YouTube because I will be uploading this to YouTube, which is going to be the first time that I have posted a real kind of update YouTube since February, and I will be diving into that today. So today's episode is actually going to be quite different from, well, shoot, like almost any podcast episode that I've done or almost any YouTube that I've done, because it's really going to be a personal update into a lot of the things that I have been going through, including what I am calling my third spiritual awakening. So, our greatest fears and our greatest limiting beliefs, that is where all of our power lies. And that's where our gifts lie as well. And I'm sure many of you guys are going to resonate with this, but I have always been someone where I have felt like my entire life I did not belong. I didn't belong with the friend groups that I was in. You know, I was late diagnosed with ADHD, of course, being a witch, all of these things. And I just always just desperately wanted to belong, to have that group of friends that, you know, when you're watching those TV shows growing up, like watching Harry Potter, Harry, Hermione, and Ron, and like always just like wanting like desperately a friend group like that who just really loved me and supported me, and really just to feel genuine human love and connection with a group, right? And so the last time that I was not podcasting, last time I was YouTubing in February, I thought I had found that group. This is going to be a little emotional for me, but I thought I had found this group that was super supportive, especially, you know, since I got out of that abusive relationship last year. It was a narcissistic abusive relationship, and I got out and I was terrified, and I just desperately wanted a community that felt very safe and very grounding, who, in a way, in my trauma brain, would make sure that I didn't disappear, right? That would kind of look out for me and everything. And I really thought that I had found that in the powerlifting community here at my gym, except, well, there's bullies even when you are an adult. And when you are a pink-haired witch living in Texas, there will be people who will say that they are your friend and say that they'll take care of your dog and like all of these things and talk to you in person. And meanwhile, behind my back, they were saying some truly awful things. And that kind of came to light in February after I released the last YouTube, and it was just soul crushing for me. It was very re-traumatizing, and it sent me straight back to the abusive relationship, because a lot of the words that this person was saying, how they confronted me, was just an immediate PTSD flashback where I was in the car being abused, not being able to talk, not being able to share my voice, not being able to do anything to kind of like verbally fight back, because that would just make things worse, right? And I thought about YouTubing, but I didn't want to kind of post any reactionary thing, because I do think that a lot of people at the gym are still really good. It just became very clear to me that it was a space where I didn't belong, and I'm like a square that I've been trying to fit into a round hole, right? And it's been over the last few months that there we have Freya, that I've really started to shift my perspective on this like fear of not belonging, and actually is coming to see it for the superpower that it is. Because in actuality, it's a good thing that I don't belong. And I'm not supposed to belong, especially as I have gotten deeper into my spiritual journey. And it really felt like my guides in the universe kind of pushed everyone away from me for a reason. Because I do think a big piece of my spiritual journey was moving from my hometown of Houston to Austin. And of course, like wanting to make friends at the gym, and then getting out of the abusive relationship, and then having to realize that, okay, I can still like have these friends, but okay, Freya, come on, that I'm still not going to necessarily belong. And this was really important for me, because for most of my life growing up, anytime I would start to be a little bit more authentic, anytime I would be a little bit more spiritual, I would lose people and I would lose friends. And so this has been like a reoccurring, like essentially a trauma and a limiting belief that I have had to work through over the last year. over and over and over. Like you think that you're good, but then it's like you get faced and you have to crack open another layer. And this is, something that I do with my clients because, I can say that I've been authentic, right? But you are only as authentic as you know yourself. And so for this last year, it has really been a very deep journey of self-discovery. And it's like I crack another layer deeper every month or every week now. It seems like another layer deeper on my authenticity. And it's just been like a rocket ship of personal and spiritual growth. And it's definitely kind of I felt like the G-force and everything like really affecting me and like almost making me feel like I don't know what to do. Like, how do I talk about this? Because I have had so many situations in my past where I have been bullied and mocked and frankly just abandoned by friends who just thought that I was too weird. Because I tend to put myself into situations where my true self would not be accepted. And I try to fit in and make myself small. And this has been a continuous thing throughout my life because of safety and people pleasing. And I know a lot of you guys can identify with that because you probably feel like certain parts of yourself aren't socially acceptable. And especially when you are running an account on social media and running a business that relies on that social media, and you've had all of these experiences where people leave you and people don't like you anymore, it's a very terrifying thing to be more authentic. And so even though I announced that I was a witch in December of 2022, I lost like 200 followers immediately. So that was very much like a trigger. And I was like, okay, this is good. I'm in my authenticity. At least I've told them. But it feels like my guides and the universe have just been cracking me down like layer and layer deeper to really fully embrace my spirituality and my authenticity and my coaching business, right? I know I am still a fitness coach, but it's been through these layers that I've started to bring my energy healing into my business, bringing my psychic gifts into my business, and just being able to speak about it more openly and share like the knowledge and the downloads that I get from my guides with my clients in ways that dramatically impact not just their health and fitness results, but their life, their relationships, their mindset, their willingness to be authentic in their lives. Like I have clients who quit their jobs, who start businesses. I have clients who change their whole career paths, clients who come out as LGBTQ. And as as this year has gone on, seeing these like incredible magical results that these clients have gotten, it's been like, okay, you're on the right path. And so, and it's like I have released so many offers where it's like blending fitness and magic, and but in a way I've still been kind of scared to talk about my own spirituality on social media and in podcasts because I still have this fear of judgment. And this got really cracked open for me over the weekend because I did this inner child breathwork session. And in the inner child like breathwork, I was taken back to this memory where I was in elementary school, and I don't really remember exactly how old I was, but it was the sleepover. We were with the Girl Scouts and maybe like third or fourth grade or second grade. I'm not entirely sure. And that night at the sleepover, we found a world, and I called it Ghost World. And we were all in this world together, and we were all talking about it, and like the world needed help. And there were these like energy balls, and each energy ball had a different meaning and a different power. And I was just so ecstatic that everyone else could see it and that we were all in this together. And we just went on like, this like freaking grand adventure that night on the sleepover. And then the next morning, I don't know if it was the next morning or the next day at school, but I was talking about it again. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so when are we going to go back? We got to go back to the ghost world. We got to help them. Like they were at war or something. And everyone looked at me like I was crazy. And everyone kind of like was like, why are you still talking about that? Like that was just make believe. That was last night. And it was soul crushing in a way, right? Because I think for anyone who's grown up with intuitive or psychic abilities, you don't realize that you are different. You don't realize that people see things differently than you or don't see things differently than you. Or even if people do see things differently, they have their own fears and their own projections. And so I didn't understand until I saw this memory again. And so I still kept going back to that world. And I would lay down on my bed at night. I would close my eyes, and I had this process where I realized when I was replaying this memory in this inner child breath work where I was like, oh my gosh, I was going on a journey meditation. I was entering an altered state of consciousness and I was going to a different dimension, a different reality, whatever you want to call it. And that's exactly what I do today in my practices in the float tanks, in my shamanic practices as a witch. Like, I know there's so many different names for witchcraft and everything, but my main practice is I will meditate and I will go to my Akashic records. I'll go to the upper world, I'll go to the lower world. I will go to different places in this altered state of consciousness where I am talking to guides. And so as I was like replaying this memory in my head, I was like, holy shit. I was doing magic. I was journeying. I was talking to a guide, and I still remember who that person was that I visited. Like every single night, I don't know how long I did, but I started to write down the journeys. And for me and my child mind, because, you know, I'd been told that it was fake and that it was make believe, but like deep in my heart of hearts, it didn't feel that way. And so when I would come out of it, I would just write everything down. And I told myself I was writing a book. And so it was like each night I would meditate. I didn't know it was meditating, right? I would meditate to get another piece of the story. And then I would write it all down again. And that would continue. And I don't know how long I went on with that before I kind of decided that it was crazy, and that I shouldn't do that anymore. But when I found that memory, I just started sobbing because for my childhood and my whole life, all that I have wanted was to be magical, right? To have magic and to realize in that meditation, like, oh my gosh, Emily, like you were always magical. Maybe not magic in the way of Harry Potter and everything, but that is real and that is energy. And as I have read more about quantum physics in the last few months and dove more into really surrounding myself with a lot of strong channels, like on the podcast, which I am planning on uploading a lot of these interviews to YouTube as well that I've done in the past. But it was just the other day that I had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Robin McKay, who is a powerful like psychic medium and channel, and just surrounding myself with a lot of really powerful female spiritual women where I've just started to realize like, oh my gosh, I have gaslit myself my whole life into telling myself that all of these things that I knew deep within my heart of hearts as a child was real, telling myself that it wasn't. And it's like when you're a kid, life is in full color, right? You're running around. You know, I had imaginary friends as kids. I had like 2 horses, probably had some fairies. I would run around in my parents' backyard in the suburbs and like try and find fairies. I would make potions out of dish soap and glitter. And then there was this ghost world and I would see signs for it everywhere. And when I went to Paris for the first time, we went to the place where Marie Antoinette was kept as a prisoner. And I just felt like the energy of like ghosts around me. Like I couldn't see them, but I just felt like they were there. And then at some point, when you hear enough people saying that it's crazy, it's not real, it's like that starts to leach the color out of your life. And I was bullied a lot in middle school. And I'm sure that anyone else who has their story of, you know, not quite fitting in probably experienced this as well. And I remember in middle school kind of going like, okay, well, if magic can't help me, then what's the point of even being here on this earth? And getting into some self-harm in middle school, because it just kind of felt like if there wasn't magic in the world, then what was the point? And so it's been very powerful to be around all of these women and to realize like, oh my gosh, like quantum physics actually proves all of this stuff is real, and quantum physics calls it energy, right? So I like to call it magic because it makes my inner child very happy. But just the simple fact that quantum physics has proved that we live in a web of energy. And yet for some reason, there's so many people out there in this world who can see that fact and just like willfully ignore it, because it is kind of hard to wrap your head around, because it is kind of paradigm shifting and reality shifting. But I just started bawling in that inner child meditation because it was like I had leached all of the color out from my life by telling myself that magic didn't exist, that I had to be logical. And then I can see how I went through my life not truly chasing my dreams. Because the thing about your dreams, guys, is that it's not going to be logical, because you're going to get these intuitive nudges. You're going to want things for yourself that don't seem logical. Like, especially when it comes to your fitness journey, since I have been a fitness coach for 3.5 years. So it's easy for me to draw that metaphor back. Like, if you have this desire to go on a fitness journey, but everyone else around you thinks it's crazy, it's really easy to tell yourself, like, oh, it's not logical, I shouldn't do this, I should just give up. When really, like, your desires, that is your intuition guiding you to something. There's even been like quantum physics experiments that prove that the body knows things before the brain does. And it's just so wild when you start learning about it. I definitely recommend, if you are interested in learning more for yourself, there is this, it's basically spiritual Netflix. It's called Gaia.com. And like, go watch the one on water and go watch the one on sound. And it will just absolutely blow your mind. Because when I started to tap back into my magic, as I have shared here on this podcast, it was when I was in a deep depressive cycle and everything in life seemed dull. Like, I had my coaching business, but it just seemed like I didn't care. Like, it wasn't fulfilling for me. Like, oh, great, I'm helping women lose weight. That's just adding to diet culture. And it wasn't until I got my first deck of oracle cards and I started to realize, like, for me, that first moment that I decided to call myself a witch, it was kind of like, this isn't logical and I don't care, because I have wanted to be this my entire life. And I just know deep in my soul of souls that I am a witch. And maybe that's not logical. I don't really care. Maybe it's make believe. I don't really care. And that was kind of the first moment that I decided to start calling myself a witch, except I still had all of these stories in my head that people were going to call me crazy, that maybe I was crazy, that maybe I was making it all up. All of these things that I think so many people go through when starting a spiritual journey, especially if you grew up with a very different paradigm, like Christianity or atheism. And, I went from being an atheist to being a full out witch, which is, that's a wild jump. But then it was like the color started to come back into my life, because then I started to trust my intuition and I started to just see magic in my life. And that's, again, it's like seeing color again for the first time, where instead of just going outside in the trees and just seeing the trees as just like chlorophyll and plants that give you oxygen, like, just really feeling the power of nature and the healing energy of nature. Because, we even have scientific evidence for how nature is healing, in fact. And just feeling that connectedness that you have to everything on this planet just filled my life with so much more color. Except in a way, I still doubted myself, because I still remembered those stories of those girls thinking that I was crazy. I still remembered how I would say my first spiritual awakening was when I got my yoga teacher training in college. Because when I found this yoga studio, even though it turned out to kind of be a yoga cult, as I found out last year, Baron Baptiste, not a great guy. But at the studio, it was this starting to tap into the sense of spirituality and oneness, and incorporating that with body movement. That was actually how my fitness journey got started, you guys, was with the blending of spirituality and fitness. And when I became a yoga teacher, it was like my best friend in college stopped talking to me. And I felt like I'd done something wrong. I felt like I was being punished. And so I really remember, like, after that, like, really shrinking myself. And there was a big T trauma that happened around that time as well. And so it felt like I was isolated and that I was punished and that people didn't like me for the real me. And that has been a belief that followed me around. And that is why trauma does impact your fitness journey, because I had this belief that people did not like me for the real me. So even though in my bodybuilding days, I was being very authentic, I was still like, wouldn't even look at my witchy side. I wouldn't even look at my intuitive side, because it was so far buried. And so it was like, again, like I said, you can only be as authentic as you know yourself. And I was so terrified to see myself, to know, because, guys, the moment that I realized that I was a witch was terrifying. And because it meant that like, oh my gosh, I have to share this with my audience because I am not someone who keeps secrets. And I have always strived to be as authentic and as vulnerable on all of my platforms as possible. And so that moment that I was a witch, I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to leave me. People are going to hate me. They're going to think that I'm evil. And sure, a lot of people might, but in reality, like if you are going through a spiritual awakening as well, if you trigger someone else, that is really just you mirroring something back to them, because all relationships, everything in our life is really just a mirror for us. And so it's like, I've told the story of like the first time that I walked into a crystal shop after I realized fully that I was a witch. It was a well-lit, gorgeous crystal shop. It's called Body, Mind, Soul in Houston, Texas. And well-lit, warm humans and everything. I walked in, and despite how bright it was, there were no voodoo dolls. There was nothing like on that darker side of witchcraft that you do see that is not as scary, but looks scary. I walked into that crystal shop and was absolutely terrified. It had nothing to do with the shop, you guys, right? It was because I was terrified of myself, and I was terrified of what people would think, and terrified of my authenticity. And that is why when you start to go on your spiritual journey and when you start to open up to people, that you will be very triggering for people. Because each time I walked into a witchy shop, it wasn't that I was scared of the witch. It was because I was scared to know myself. Because once you know something, you can't unknow it. And this is why, like, my Warrior Goddess Transformation program, my spiritual mentorship program, they're long-term coaching containers, because to fully see yourself and to fully become authentic and to release people pleasing and set boundaries, it is layers that you have to crack down. And so I call myself a recovering people pleaser, and I will always call myself a recovering people pleaser, because I think as an empath and also someone who grew up very much as an introvert with ADHD and rejection sensitivity dysphoria, that there's always going to be areas in your life where you might subtly still be people pleasing. And if you start to tell yourself that you are not a people pleaser, if you start to tell yourself that you are not codependent, if you start to tell yourself that you are 100% healthy, that you are incredible, that you are the best person ever, almost like the toxic positivity, like affirmations, your brain will go, okay, we are not a people pleaser, and will refuse to let you see any areas of your life where you are a people pleaser. And so it can be very triggering to see someone like me and hear me, and then because then I will serve as a mirror to you to show you where you are still people pleasing. And so I do end up triggering a lot of my clients, and I don't like to call it triggers anymore. I like to call it activations. And the reframe that I have with my clients is, each time you get activated, that is a chance for you to grow, because it's so easy to shame ourselves. And honestly, one of the best ways to start working with me is through my Unshaming Fitness 6-week program, which is a neurological reprogramming 6-week course to reprogram your brain for self-love over shame, especially when it comes to a fitness journey. And the women in that program have gotten truly incredible results. They have released binge eating and emotional eating. 2 of them mindfully lost weight in the beta program. One was able to stop tracking, who, if anyone here has tracked macros or tracked their nutrition for a long time or been super strict with their diet at all, that like all or nothing that comes on when you stop tracking and it's suddenly like a binge or a free for all. She was able to completely stop tracking and mindfully maintain her weight and mindfully eat throughout the program. They improved their relationships. They improved, they started setting boundaries with work so that they even had time for the fitness journey. It is a fantastic, incredible 6-week program, very light on the spirituality, but a very easy way to dip your toe into my world. But, oh gosh, I totally lost my train of thought where we were going with that. But the neurological reprogramming work, that is what I have had to do with my own brain, right? Because if you tell yourself that people pleasing is bad, and if you tell yourself that you should be ashamed of it, and people pleasing is kind of like a bad word, right, on social media. And so we can get ashamed of it when we are people pleasing, but in a way, people pleasing has kept us safe, right? And so when I was just strictly a fitness coach, I was people pleasing by not talking about witchcraft, because I was trying to control everyone's perception of me, because I was trying to protect myself from being hurt. I was trying to protect myself from negative comments. Except in a way, in doing that, I was depriving you guys of my full self and my full gifts and my full magic by not talking about my guides. And so, I know I mentioned my guides before, but the Morrigan is definitely my main deity. Hecate came before her, but Hecate was almost just like leading me to the Morrigan because Hecate seemed, she's a dark goddess, right? But not quite as dark as the Morrigan appears, except a lot of that is just because a lot of feminine spirituality and a lot of powerful women across stories and across cultures, from even Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary, have been kind of pushed down. A lot of their stories have been, they've been made to be evil. I'm looking at my Morrigan statue across the room. And really, she has just been leading me to fully embrace all aspects of myself. And it's been through breaking down these layers of who am I and going to float tanks. And I go to float tanks every single week, and that is where I go on a long shamanic journey to speak with my guides. I mentioned I read my Akashic records. I've really been trusting my intuitive hits, very much just a claircognizance, clairsentience. Like I get just these feelings and these knowings. Sometimes a thought will pop into my head. I am clairvoyant, especially when I do Reiki energy healing. I will see colors and I will see animals. And this has been very fun to really start to integrate with my clients, especially my VIP clients, because we'll be on a call and I'll just be like, hey, like I'm seeing a robin pop up. Let me go ahead and look that up in my power animal book, and I'll read it and they'll just be like, holy shit, that is so accurate. And like I'll do tarot card readings for clients and they're like, just like, they're like, shut up, Emily. Like, of course, like this is exactly what's going on in my life. And it's kind of a little bit like they very much say that working with me is like therapy, which as it should be, because well, in a therapist, you're going to therapy to feel seen and heard, right? Whereas with coaching, you are getting coaching to change. And so it might feel like therapy to work with me because I am activating you and I'm pushing you to grow and change and to be more of your authentic self, to release these layers and layers of people pleasing and to, again, like crack down these layers. I like to use the metaphor, which works really well with fitness as well. It's like, you are a marble statue. You are a Greek statue. You are a goddess. You are a god. We all have this spark of divinity in us that is all part of the collective unconscious. That is my truth. And there's goddesses and gods of all shapes and sizes, right? So no matter how you feel about your body right now, that doesn't make you any less divine or any less worthy of that label. And it's like this metaphor of like, you are in the marble and we're just like chiseling away all of the parts of you that are not you, all of the like ideas that society has put on you about how you should be or how you should look or how you should act, and just chiseling and chiseling and chiseling away until what's left is the perfect, authentic you underneath all of those layers of bullshit that do not serve you in ascending and becoming your higher self and reaching all of your big, scary goals that you might be too scared to even admit to yourself. Because it wasn't until I did that inner child meditation and I went to the gym and I was so excited to tell people there. And, there's really only one or two people who are close to my age who are really like old enough. And even if I like to call people like muggles, if they're not in like the spiritual world, they have enough intelligence to be able to hold a conversation with this about me and not judge me or anything. And it was a day at the gym where not a single person said hi to me. And that's still very triggering for me because it made me feel like, oh my gosh, maybe I did something wrong. Like maybe what I'm posting is too much. And because one of the things that I did when I rebranded my fitness and life coaching program as the Warrior Goddess Transformation Program, really bringing in a lot of the past life regression work, a lot of the energy healing, a lot of the timeline shifting and quantum leaping, and all of these like modalities that already were in my course, but that I was just too afraid to publicly speak about because of judgment. When I rebranded as the Warrior Goddess Transformation Program, I actually got that as a download when I was going and reading my own Akashic records. I saw myself in this goddess photography. And so I ended up, we'll get back to the gym story in a moment, but I ended up looking up on Instagram, searching goddess boudoir photos. And I just felt this intuitive pull to like look it up. And the first picture that I clicked on was someone who was in Houston, Texas. And I'd already had plans to go puppy sit for my parents because they were in Europe. And it just all lined up perfectly. And it felt very terrifying to do a boudoir shoot because there's all this judgment around women posting their bodies. And one of the people pleasing things that I have had to release is the fear of making other people feel bad. Right. And that has been for a lot of my life where I am someone who's incredibly intelligent and incredibly wise. And I hide that a lot because I don't want people to feel bad, which makes me a great coach because then if you're paying me, then you want to hear my information. So I just let it full out in my coaching programs. And gosh, we dive into relationships, we dive into intuition building, we dive into your relationship with food, your relationship with yourself, all areas of life you are expected to grow here with me. And so it was this, again, these shedding of these people-pleasing layers around body image. And so the boudoir shoot, it really felt like in spirituality and in witchcraft in particular, if you can see my tattoo, if you are on YouTube, there's the triple goddess notion where it's these like different phases of a woman's life. And so typically it's the maiden, mother, and the crone. And I really love replacing the mother archetype with the queen archetype for anyone who is, well, I'm 28, right? For anyone who is older, who is not a mother yet and isn't quite sure if they want to be a mother. And it really felt like this boudoir shoot was kind of a transition ceremony or ritual from the maiden archetype, this like young, girlish, like idealistic figure, into the queen archetype, where it's like, okay, no, I am going to stand in my power. I am not going to care what other people think of me because I am making the best decisions for myself and my kingdom, my empire. As really, I like to use the term empress because that is the tarot card that always comes up for me. That's my significator card when I pull cards for myself. But of course, now comes the triggers of posting those pictures. And I'm so excited to get like the edits back and everything. But I had this fear of like when I went to the gym, going back to the story where I was so excited to tell them about all these spiritual things that were happening in my life. And no one spoke to me. And I had this like, it's like you will get triggered even though you feel like you've worked on it. So even though I felt like I'd worked on this feeling of rejection, this feeling of abandonment, I was telling myself, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. No, it still triggered me. And I had this like fear of like, maybe like people don't want to talk to me because like I'm posting these boudoir photos and maybe people don't like me anymore because of this or that. And it's like, I get to like go back to that inner child to be like, hey, it's okay if other people abandon us, and it's okay if other people don't like us because I will never abandon you. And that is the biggest thing when it comes to fears of abandonment and rejection, is that you just soothing yourself and you soothing your inner child and telling yourself that you will never abandon you and that you will never reject you. Because when we are people pleasing, when we are doing things because we're fearing that people will reject us if we are not our true selves, or that people will abandon us if we are not our true selves, what we are really doing is self-rejecting and self-abandoning. And so, like, for me, the thing that I realized this weekend is like, if I do not start talking about my magic and my practice and my guides and the channeling that I'm doing and the past life regression stuff more openly on social media, now that I know, because I can't unknow this now, that in a way that is me rejecting and abandoning myself. And I will never do that again. I will always be my most authentic and my most vulnerable self, because I do not want to surround myself with people who only like me when I am a certain way. Because in my world, you get all of me or you get none of me. Right. And I think that's very difficult in the gym space and in the fitness space, especially, being someone who's been a fitness coach slash influencer for a while here in this industry. It's very easy for me to see, like, once you meet other influencers and meet other business owners, it was really jarring and shocking for me to see how many people looked a certain way on social media, and yet you meet them in real life and you see how insecure they are. You see where they're people pleasing, you see where they're hiding their real selves, and it's a little heartbreaking. And I can't live like that, right? I can be super authentic on my Instagram stories and everything, but if I am not like sharing this truth of my soul on my posts, then I start to resent my business and I start to resent who I am, right? Kind of feeling like that inauthenticity where it's like, I am one way, I am very spiritual in this way, but people don't like me that way. And no, I am done with that. And so one of the things that my guides, especially specifically the Morrigan, has been calling me to do has been to offer a straight, like, spiritual mindset mentorship offer, which just absolutely lights my soul on fire, because this has been something that I have been doing for a few years and that I really feel called to do. And we can do this one-on-one, or we can do this in a group aspect, because I do still have the course, my magical mindset course, which was previously called Fitness Witch Academy. And now it's been rebranded into the Warrior Goddess Transformation Program, where we do go over past life regressions. We do go over your mindset. We do go over your relationships, and like the results that my clients have had, like spiritual awakenings, quitting their jobs, reframing their relationships. We do cover a lot of narcissistic abuse stuff and recovering from codependency, because we frankly were raised to be codependent in this day and age. But I have 3 spots for a one-on-one spiritual mindset mentorship that would be 6 months long. Shoot me a DM to see if it would be right for you, either on Instagram, I don't know, leave me a comment on the YouTube if you want, reply to an email. And then we also have the spiritual group coaching as well, if you want to get in on that, if you do not want weight loss or fitness coaching in addition to that. Because I mean, this has been like the hardest like struggle for me, right? As I start to talk more and more openly about the spirituality, then people start to be like, well, do you know nutrition? And I'm like, dear God, do I know nutrition? Do I have an entire certification in it? Do I have certifications in training physique athletes and everything? And so it's been a difficult ride of trying to figure out how to show my authentic self and to really do what my heart is calling me to. Because when you tap into fitness and when you tap into your spirituality, they are both things that feed each other. Because when you can get in touch with your intuition, when you can get in touch with the truth of who you are, when you can listen to your body, that makes your fitness journey so much easier. And especially with the neurological reprogramming work that I do with all of my clients. And then, of course, when you add the strategy of whether that's tracking macros or mindful eating strategies with a strategic training plan to build your glutes, your delts, whatever you want, all the muscle, all the strength, that is the full package here. And so many people think that it has to be one or the other. And that is really the illusion of this world, especially before you kind of dip your toes into spiritual awakening and what they call ascension, is that the duality is the illusion. And we all kind of start out believing that we are separate from everyone, when really, in like the most awe-inspiring truth that I have seen in the float tanks and among all of the mentors that I've had is that we are all connected. You as a listener, you are a part of me and I am a part of you, and we all have the same spark of divinity that connects us all. And when you start to realize that, you realize that like separation is the illusion, that we are not separate. The way that you do one thing in your life affects the way that you do all things. Your health impacts your intuition. Your health impacts your spirituality. Your spirituality impacts your health. Your intuition impacts your health. Your relationships impact your health, and vice versa. And it's all connected, just like we are all connected in this world. And lost my train of thought there a little bit, but that is the truth of really where my coaching programs are going, right? I'm not saying that I'm stopping being a fitness coach at all. It's just that I can no longer be just a surface level fitness coach. I can no longer just give someone macros and a training plan without helping them with this deeper work, because I know in my soul's mission, I'm looking at the Morrigan statue here again, is that I am here to help women rise back up into their power. And that means like your own truth, your own authenticity, your own gifts. I'm not here to teach a witchcraft one-on-one course, because frankly, I think a lot of the spirituality that I have discovered has gone like even deeper than witchcraft. My practice is Celtic shamanism, which is shamanism is basically the indigenous practices of all of the world, right? Where you would go on journey meditations, you're tapping your brain into theta state and going into altered states of consciousness and getting downloads from different beings and higher powers and everything, and helping you to tap into your sense of your authenticity and grow your power and grow your business and grow your truth, and to help you share your gifts with the world. And I know that is more of my purpose, and which is why I'm so excited to offer the 6-month spiritual one-on-one mentorship. But it has really been like cracking open over and over on my own spiritual path. It's been very isolated over the last several months, but also in a way, it's been the happiest that I have ever been, despite like all of these crazy things and all of this resistance that I've been facing from people in person and in my business. Because when you are tapped into your spirituality, when you are tapped into your sense of self, when you know how to regulate your nervous system, all these things that I teach in my course, when you can easily go back to heal your inner child, when you have all of these tools at your disposal, you are able to find that sense of happiness and joy in your life, no matter what is going on for you externally, no matter how isolated you might feel, no matter what your finances are doing, no matter what your health or your body looks like. Because like, this is like the truth of who you are. When you are tapped into that sense of that truth of who you are, even if things aren't going right, I have still had this sense of like, I am on my right path. I am living my purpose. And I know that I am the creator of my reality, and that you create your reality too. And this is, one of the principles of manifestation and everything. That has just really impacted me and my life and my healing journey from abuse and from all of these years of people pleasing and trauma and hiding my true self. And I'm just here to be fully me. I'm here to be me. And I know that in being me, I'm going to attract the people who would best work with me. And even though this is like scary to post and to talk about more on social media, I know that I am not for everyone, and that I am meant to impact the world in this way. And I would really, really love to start doing more energy healings again. It feels really good for me to use my psychic gifts and energy healing. I would love to do more tarot card readings. Right now, both of those services are well below my hourly rate that I charge coaching clients. And so both of those are going to be included in the show notes if you would like to book a session with me. But otherwise, I've got a couple announcements, a couple programs coming up. So July 12th through 14th, I am hosting my first virtual retreat ever. This one, we're getting into body intuition here, specifically for your fitness journey. It is called Your Body Talks, and it is Kesha themed. And we will be going over how to communicate with your body, how to communicate with your body's intuition, specifically around the signals that your body is sending you. We'll be getting into the science of like why you might be starving after breakfast, but also the spiritual significance of your symptoms, going into the chakras, into energy work, moving energy through your body, really tapping into your body through somatic movements. There will be dancing involved, creating your own embodiment practice. And we will be doing a rapid neurological reprogramming session, including a self-love ritual to help you meet yourself. And when I say that it's a virtual retreat, you will be doing activities that help build community within the retreat as well, to get that sense of sisterhood, even though it's virtual. And that is July 12th through 14th. The second round of Unshaming Fitness will start the week after that. So like July 17th, 17th or 18th. And Unshaming Fitness is my 6-week program, as I mentioned, where we will do a lot of neurological reprogramming work on releasing shame everywhere in your life. So clients, shedded shame around trauma that affected their fitness journey and their body image. I will teach you my 10-1-10 unshaming resistance protocol. If you feel like you have resistance to the fitness journey or going to the gym or meal prepping, like, this is not a problem in my world, and you are not a problem in my world. And shame is also the thing that tells us that we need to seek external solutions for everything. So gosh, there was a client in my Unshaming Fitness program who legit had a spiritual awakening, even though Unshaming Fitness is very much more of just neurological reprogramming and not so much the deities and the woo and the past life stuff and everything. Because when you start to release shame, you feel like you can fully own your power and own your authenticity, which is the really beautiful part of that program. And that is for sure the best way to kind of start dipping your toes into my world to see if I might be the best mentor for you. And then otherwise, we have my Warrior Goddess Transformation Program, which is my year-long transformation program. So this is for the women who want to have a total mind, body, life transformation in 1 year, because it is all connected, right? So you will not just be losing weight. You'll not just be on the fitness journey. You will also be improving in your business, in your career. You will be improving your mindset. You will be improving your relationships. And yes, tapping into a sense of what spirituality even means for you, right? We've got women who are Christians in the program. We've got women who are atheists. It's like, it does not matter, right? Because you are tapping into the truth of who you are, healing your chakras, healing your voice, healing your people pleasing and your sisterhood wounds, and all of these things that are so integral for all women in this day and age. And I think I mentioned this, but the reason why it's a year is because we are really good at hiding things from ourselves. And when you have a coach, I am able to see things that you don't see about yourself. And I'm able to, especially when it comes to emotional compartmentalization and current life regressions and like seeing layers of trauma that might still be impacting your day-to-day life, I'm able to point it out and I'm able to guide you in the direction of the resources that you need to be able to crack open a deeper layer. And again, it needs to be a year, because you'll get fantastic results in a month. You will get fantastic results in 3 months, but you will also, like, as you redo the coursework, and the cool thing is like the coursework is 12 weeks, but then each and every week in our group calls, I do a new subject. I have not repeated a call yet, because there's always something new that is being channeled through me that we need to talk about. In a week or two, we're going to be diving into relationships and how that could be impacting your fitness journey and your life goals. And go do self-love, body rituals, and everything. This program just lights my soul on fire because of the true depth of impact that it has on clients. That is the reason why fitness coaching by itself was not fulfilling for me, because I know my soul has known this entire time that I was meant to impact women on a deeper level, especially on a more spiritual level. And so to be really like stepping into that power and owning that is truly incredible. And for that program, you can learn more about it and all the modalities that we use down there. And if you want just the spiritual side of things without the health and fitness coaching, please reach out, check out like the list of everything that we cover in the Warrior Goddess Transformation Program to see if you are interested in that. And then like reach out, because definitely for that, we would want to have a call to make sure that we are on the same page, that we vibe well, because like we would be working very closely one-on-one. And again, like my clients say, it does feel like therapy sometimes. So we need to make sure that we trust each other and that we are on the same page for you to get the best results for your life, for your magic, for your spirituality, for your business. We can talk about social media growth, all of those things. And these are the offerings that I have for you guys right now. All of them are going to be continued to replay. So even if you're watching this in the future, like the Your Body Talks virtual retreat, you'll be able to buy the replays of that as well. And gosh, we're kind of wrapping up this whole spiritual journey. And let me know, like leave a review, shoot me a message on Instagram if you liked this more personal update of my life. Very rambly here, very ADHD, but also very authentic and vulnerable. And very me. And that is what I strive to be in all situations. And so it would very much deeply impact me if you left me a review on Apple Podcasts. That would really help this podcast to reach more people. And shoot me a message on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever platform you use to let me know how this podcast impacted you. And you can join my Facebook group as well. And heck, that would be even cooler if you could start to like post your reflections from each episode as well, because like mindset and magic alone are not going to help you reach your goals, right? We know this. I say that phrase all the time because you do need to take action and implement strategy. And that's the same thing when it comes to like spiritual awakenings and spiritual journeys, is like when I was first dipping my toe into, oh gosh, another tangent. When I was first dipping my toes into witchcraft and everything, I felt so lost. There were so many paths to take. And that is the thing. There are so many paths to take, but you have to commit to one. And then you have to start listening to the truth of your own soul. Because even when I started getting into witchcraft, like I felt like I had to externalize everything. And then the biggest thing for me lately is that as all of these things have been popping up in my life, like really needing someone to talk to about it. And so I'm so thankful for my mentors, because there is that trauma that will come up, like the am I crazy trauma? And no, the answer is no. I mean, there might be, like, if you are drinking a lot or struggling with substance abuse, and that is probably a mental health thing and you might need to go see a therapist for it. But for the most part, like on a spiritual journey, like no, your truth is your truth. And it does really help to have a mentor who can tell you that no, you're not crazy if you have a dragon guide. I've got two dragon guides right now, and I've got a plant guide, and I've got a couple power animals, and I've have angel guides and everything. And just being able to share this really openly is just absolutely lighting my soul on fire right now. So if you are feeling the pull to work with me, please shoot me a DM, leave that review on Apple Podcast, and share your reflections. Share this on Instagram, tag me. I would love to see it. I love to get messages from you guys. Really, like, the reason why I built my social media was to build a sense of community. And I have really felt a lack of that in many areas as I have started to get more into my spirituality. And I'm kind of hoping that in really opening up authentically like this, I might be able to build some connection back with you guys, as I have been so hesitant to share like the truth of my soul again. And I really want to be connected to community again. So let me know your thoughts. Send me a message on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, etc. Get out there, do all of the strong girl shit, lift some heavy weights, and remember just how powerful and innately magical you already are.